Hello everyone. In this lecture we are going to discuss about instruction execution cycle. So we have already discussed what is meant by an instruction, which is nothing but the operation that the processor executes in order to run a program. So while executing an instruction, some other operations also take place, and this together forms the instruction execution cycle. So let us see what is this cycle is all about. Now, before we go into the process, let us look at the registers that are of importance in the execution cycle of an instruction. So you can see that we have 4 special purpose registers listed out here. So the first one is the instruction register, or which we call IR. Okay, so the instruction register holds the instruction from the main memory which is to be executed next. So prior to execution of an instruction, it is fetched from main memory and kept in the instruction register. Then comes the data register, or DR. So the data register is again, this is a register where you store the operand, the value of the operand on which the execution is to take place. Then you have the third register, AR, which is your address register. So address register holds the address of the operand, where actually the operand is residing in memory. And finally, the most important one actually in this set of registers is the program counter, or PC. The program counter, as I had already mentioned in our previous video, is the register which holds the address of the next instruction to be executed. So the program counter will always tell me which is the next instruction to be executed. So let us look into the different process, how instruction execution takes place, and how these 4 different registers are used. So this instruction execution cycle is also known as a fetch, decode, and execute cycle. Fetch, decode, and execute. So different things happen in all 3 stages. The first phase is our fetch. The fetch phase, or the fetch cycle. So here what happens? The instruction to be executed is fetched from memory. Is fetched from memory. And placed in the instruction register. All right. So when the program is compiled and then the executable program is loaded into memory, all the instructions initially reside in your main memory. So this is your main memory. These are where your instructions are residing. Now you want to execute the program. So let's say the first instruction of the program starts at address 1000. So the program counter is initialized to this first address. So program counter has the value 1000. Now in the fetch cycle, the first thing that is done is you look at what is there in the PC, in the program counter. So you go to memory. Now go to this location, whatever address is there in the program counter. Take whatever is there in address 1000. So here let's say it contains an instruction, say add, say AB, something like this. So I have an instruction like this. So what will happen is that this instruction will be fetched and it will be kept in the instruction register. So this instruction will be fetched from memory and brought into the instruction register. Also something else happens. Now PC, program counter, which was holding the value 1000, now because already the execution of this instruction has already started, so now program counter should be pointing to the next location. So what we will do is program counter is incremented to point to the next location. So if our next location is 1001, then the program counter now will contain 1001. So program counter is incremented. So this is what happens during the fetch cycle. So at the end of the fetch cycle, you have the instruction to be executed loaded into the instruction register. The next is the decode phase. In the decode phase, you already have in your instruction register the instruction. Okay, it will not be something like this. It will be all in zeros and ones. So two decoding takes place. First, find out which operation is to be performed. So by looking at the operation code, we can find out which is the operation that is to be performed. So this is the first decoding. You decode the operation. Then comes decode where are the operands. So where are the operands? So by looking at the address fields, okay, and by looking at the addressing mode, so these two together will give me where or the location where the operands are present. So this happens during the decode phase. Okay, so two things, instruction is decoded and then the actual address of the operands is determined. So when we discuss about addressing modes, we will see more about this second step. So this at the end of this decode phase, now you know which operation is to be performed and you know where are the operands. Now the third and the final state is execute. The execute phase. So in the execute phase, this is quite simple. All you have to do is you have to take the instruction from the instruction register, look at the operands from the operand from the data register, look at the so you have the from the instruction register you get the operand, from the data register you get the you get the operation, from this you get data register you get the operands, okay, and then you execute the instruction. And once this execution is complete, what does it do? It goes back to the fetch. Why? Because now it has to execute the next instruction in sequence. So it goes on like this: fetch, decode, execute. So that is why we have this I talked about: fetch, decode, execute. So this is called a cycle because after execute you come back to fetch. So fetch the instruction, decode the instruction, find the operands, and then execute the instruction, and then go back and execute the next instruction. So together this is known as your instruction cycle.